Uh, yeah, but that gave me the idea to really highlight and showcase innovation in the nonprofit sector. I think sometimes the nonprofit sector, if I'm being blunt, can get a bad rep when it comes to prestige, but I think our panelists today are gonna really show you all that's not the case. Um, and so just so the panelists can also feel connected, if you're able to put your screen on or your, yeah, I think that's what it's called, your video on, that would be great. Um, and so I would really encourage you all, I see some familiar faces, and to put your video on so you can feel a bit more connected in the virtual space. Great. Well, let's get started. I just introduced myself, and so I'm going to turn it over to the panelists now. I'll start with Noah. If you can please share your name, your pronouns, and then the organization or organizations that you work with or Noah's founded.
Hi, everyone. So nice to meet you all. My name is Noah. I go by he, him pronouns, and I am the founder of Adori, which stands for I Dream of Real Impact, which is a social enterprise that makes resources such as children's books, toys, and lesson plans that teach kids about the beauty of nature and the importance of environmental conservation. And I've also taught for the past year and a half at a nonprofit based here in Boston called Boston Outdoor Preschool Network, also known as BOPN.
Let's go over to Laura now.
So my name is Laura Nilsson. I'm the Director of Global Programs at Partners for World Health. And as Kieran mentioned, we're up here in Portland, Maine. And we sit at kind of the intersection of humanitarian aid and environmental sustainability. We were founded based on the dire need that our CEO and founder was exposed to around the globe, where healthcare workers were forced to reuse gauze on wounds, use and clean items that really should be sterile and single use. And this need is filled by the great excess and waste that we have in our US healthcare system. The opportunity is to just move the surplus from one area to where it's actually needed and can be used. So our healthcare system equates to almost 5 million tons annually of waste, which averages out to about 30 pounds of waste per bed at the hospital per day, which is a really staggering quantity. And as I mentioned, we exist to kind of redirect that surplus to under-resourced communities, whether it be here in Maine and northern New England, or globally to areas of emerging healthcare systems, conflict zones, natural disasters, what have you. We also support medical service trips and medical staff going abroad with us to primarily serve women and maternal health in clinics in Bangladesh, Kenya, Uganda, Senegal, just to name a few. And we really do this with a lot of volunteers and a very small staff. As a lot of nonprofits do, we leverage that extra help that we could find. So just a few quick stats. We saved almost 560,000 pounds of surplus from the landfills and incinerators last year alone. We served almost 850 community members here in Maine with our no questions asked, low cost or no cost medical equipment and supplies program. We shipped 29 shipments in 2024, reaching our 150th shipment globally just last month, valued last year alone at $7.4 million worth of medical equipment and supplies redistributed. And about half of those shipments were in response to major conflict and war in Ukraine, Palestinian territories, Syria, Sudan. So we have a global footprint, but also quite a strong presence locally and rely on that nonprofit connectivity as well.
Very impressive, Laura. Thank you so much for sharing. Alex.
Hello, everyone. I'm Alex Britton. My pronouns are they, them, and I am the volunteer and field maintenance coordinator here in Boston at the Emerald Necklace Conservancy. So at the Conservancy, we steward and provide advocacy for the network of parks throughout Boston called the Emerald Necklace. At about 1,100 acres, it's almost half of Boston's total parkland and by far Boston's largest park system. It runs through about a dozen different neighborhoods in the city, including part of Brookline. So we're in a pretty cool spot to be a unified advocacy for all this green space in the city. And as per my role, I coordinate our many volunteers and work on different park restoration and invasive plant management programs.
Thanks, Alex. I very much appreciate your work when I visit the Emerald Necklace for many of my runs. So thank you. Andrew.
Hello, I'm Andrew Thompson. He, him pronouns. I'm an assistant director at Boston Building Resources. We are a nonprofit building material reuse center. My kid calls it a Goodwill hardware store. So we take in donated things, anything you'd expect to find in a big box home improvement retailer, new and used, and we sell it at steep discounts to folks in the community. We have been in Roxbury for about 30 years. Building materials account for 11% of global carbon emissions. It's an astounding number, and Massachusetts, at last count in 2022, exported 1.8 million tons of building material debris. So there's no available landfill space in the state anymore for construction and demolition debris. It all gets trucked somewhere else. So we are doing our part to keep what is reusable in a circular economy and make it available to people in our community who have a pretty high need for this stuff. I think we all know that, adequate and vibrant housing is a foundational part of a healthy community. So doing our bit.
Thanks, Andrew. And yeah, our Student Sustainability Committee was really happy to volunteer with Boston Building Resources this past fall and contribute in a very small way. But thank you all for sharing a little bit about your organizations, what you do. I think let's start with actually your career path question. I know you guys have seen the questions already, but I think that could help students really engage. And so if you can all share a little bit about your career path and the role of discernment in that path, thinking about moments of self-honesty, reflection, and how that has led to where you are today. And so take a moment and yeah, feel free to chime in when you're ready.
I can hop in first here. So I think I'm probably most recently graduated out of this group. I just graduated from Boston University back in May, and I studied undergrad entrepreneurship and sustainability. I've always wanted to be doing something entrepreneurial because I really like the idea of building something from the ground up, from scratch, and using it to create a positive impact in the world, which is why I kind of like dual majored and also did sustainability. But it was through studying business. I was in Questrom School of Business at BU that I kind of realized that a lot of the work that I was doing in the entrepreneurial space was actually not necessarily how I wanted to be spending the majority of my time in my career. I spent a ton of time behind a computer in Zoom meetings, kind of doing administrative tasks and logistical work. And I really care about education and being outside, especially with children, teaching them about the beauty of the earth and the importance of developing a relationship with all living things. So that's when I started looking into career opportunities in Boston and ultimately came across Boston Outdoor Preschool Network as a really beautiful way that I could kind of get outside of my office space and actually get out into the world and make a positive impact while also spending some time outdoors and developing relationships with real people, not in front of a computer screen. And working for Boston Outdoor Preschool Network for the past year and a half has been an incredibly beneficial experience for me. I feel like I've learned so much about myself and kind of the lifestyle that I want to enjoy as I get older and start thinking about the direction that I want to take my career, pivoting from kind of wanting to pursue more of a business career to being more interested in the nonprofit space was something that has been very fulfilling and rewarding to me, and something that I wouldn't trade for anything in the world.
Thanks, Noah. Do you want to share a bit about Idori as well?
Yeah, sure. So the work that I'm doing with Adori, basically as a freshman or sophomore in college, I realized that children absorb so much from the mainstream media, from the books that they read, the toys that they play with, the YouTube channels that they watch, the TV shows that they watch, and the online games that they play on a daily basis. And well, certain brands like Sesame Street emphasize important concepts like social emotional learning, math, spelling. I felt that there was a real gap or a real lack of nature-centric and environmental conservation-centric education for early childhood, especially in the mainstream media. So I, along with some of my friends in college, created this organization called Adori to make these eco-friendly characters. I actually have an example right here. So we make plush toys and children's books as our first product. So this is Benji the tree hopper, who teaches kids about the beauty of our forests and the importance of taking care of trees. And the idea is that if children are already spending so much time engaging with mainstream media, let's take advantage of that and use that as a way to generate a positive impact by instilling positive values of the environment. And the cool thing about starting this organization is that I've realized over time that there are so many different ways that we can educate our youth about sustainability, and creating books and plush toys and getting them on the shelves of bookstores is just one way. And I realized that that's actually not the most rewarding part of this work for me, or the most impactful part of this work. And actually working with nonprofits. So we've developed partnerships with several other nonprofits like Eco Brothers and Project Learn based out of Lowell to donate our books to a variety of different communities and offer free, accessible events to make nature-based education more equitable and accessible to different underserved communities across the country. And that just shows you like a really cool way of how there are so many different ways to contribute to a field when you're passionate about something. And while I started out making children's books and plush toys, and I was thinking I was really going to go the more commercial route of just growing as a startup in more of a traditional sense that I was taught in business school, I realized what felt more impactful to me and what I actually enjoyed more doing was going out into local communities, engaging with kids directly, taking kids outdoors and teaching them about the beauty of nature, and still using these eco-friendly plush toys and children's books to help facilitate that learning has been kind of a good way to connect something that I put a lot of work into doing and ultimately what feels the most impactful for me.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing your experiences. I can't believe you just graduated from BU last year and you're doing so much already. So thanks for I've seen that Adori is also made out of, eco-friendly materials, and so are the books, and working in sustainability myself, thinking about procurement of materials. It can be very challenging. We haven't done like a succulent plant event because I can't figure out where to get succulents, and I'm happy with where I can get it. But I think that your story really shows, you said you were working, or not working, but you were studying business, and you really wanted to align it more with your values and mission-driven impact. And I remember, Alex, in our past conversations, you also shared a bit about your pivot in your career, or not pivot, but thinking about what you studied and what you're doing now. And so I was wondering if you can also share about your career path.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I started college and was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life, I knew that I wanted to uh, work on what I felt to be like some of the most pressing issues of my time. I didn't. I know some people find a lot of fulfillment from working on things that don't have super immediate applications, but I am not one of those people. And so I did a double major in environmental science and studies of women, gender, and sexuality. And then I had kind of the hard question of whether I wanted to go into the nonprofit sector or the private sector. It was a hard question for me because I'm the first person in my family to go to college. I'm financially independent from my family, so that was so given that usually almost always the nonprofit sector pays a lot less than the private, it was a tough decision for me, but I ultimately decided that the nonprofit route was the best for me because I wanted to work someplace that I know is giving back to the community and is deeply involved in the community. And yeah, and I'm not just, you know, working to line someone else's pockets. So yes, so similarly, I'm very happy with that decision. I've been working here at the Conservancy for going on 4 years now. The first year I was here as an AmeriCorps service member through the TerraCorps program, which that is, you know, a great starting pathway into the nonprofit space. It can be a little tricky. It was for me. I was working 2 jobs during that time because the AmeriCorps living stipend is small. Yeah, but it got me here. I learned a lot of good skills along the way. Goodness, what else? Yeah, but I think in regards to like studying, pivoting from study, I started out when I started studying environmental science, I was very much more focused on, you know, agroforestry, sustainable farming, sustainability in that type of land use. And so pivoting to public land was a bit unexpected for me, but it's where I was hiring at the time, and I love it. I love working in urban parks. I hope I continue to do so for a long time because it's such a wonderful intersection of you know, public space, public use, and ecosystems and ecology, which I really love. And with regard to my women and gender studies major, in our previous conversation, I actually talked about how you know, you can apply anything to a sustainability career. You can apply anything, I think, to a, you know, green jobs, such a broad category. And I think personally, I use the things I learned from my women and gender studies degree even more than I use the stuff from my environmental science degree in my job. Because, you know, I might not remember the exact chemical pathway for photosynthesis, but women and gender studies taught me a lot of systems thinking, a lot about power structures and how things move in the world, and I use that every single day. So yeah, I think there's a lot of different pathways into this work, and mine is just one of them.
Thanks, Alex, for sharing. I really appreciate you not only sharing with us like your pathway in terms of where you come from and the challenge and the decision, and I can see the bravery that it can take to to take a chance. And it sounds like you're really enjoying where you are now and it aligns with your values. And I believe Laura has a similar very different, but very similar in her career as well. Starting, I think, in accounting and landing in at Partners for World Health. So Laura, do you want to share a bit about your pathway? And also, I really liked how Alex brought in sort of these skills that maybe you won't think are relevant, but are very relevant. And so if you want to touch on that as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, I think I'm coming from, you know, a really kind of under-resourced school system in a rural area. So in high school and in, you know, middle school, we didn't really have exposure to what one might consider, you know, non-traditional career paths. Most of my peers were going into healthcare or maybe becoming an educator or law school, you know, and because I was good at math and analytical and I didn't fit those other, you know, traditional molds, I decided that a business degree would be great. So I went to Bentley University in Waltham and was kind of swept up in the wave of accounting and finance majors there who were a lot more sure of their paths than me. A lot of their parents were in the field, you know, family members with experience. And it was very quick and I wouldn't say easy is the wrong word, but it was very immersive with the big four accounting firms and the big finance firms that were ever present on our campus. So, in sophomore year, there was leadership program. Junior year, you were a paid intern. And before you started senior year, for me, I had already signed a job offer to take starting right after I graduated. So that all happened very quickly. And when you're very stressed and busy at school, taking that route seemed like the right thing to do. It's a very expensive school. I also didn't have the resources to just gallivant after school. I had bills to pay. So having that job offer really sealed the deal. It took me a while to get where I am now. I'm 10 years out of school, and I worked in accounting for a couple of years, knew that it wasn't for me, but I thought I could be happy enough applying those skills, maybe in the nonprofit sector, maybe in a field that, fit more of my personal passions and my happiness as opposed to just crunching numbers. But I always found myself very jealous of the companies I was working with and auditing, the program managers. There was always the idea that you could be the accountant for a large, healthcare nonprofit, or you could do the finances you could do the taxes for one of those organizations. And that's all great. All organizations need those hard skills. Every nonprofit needs a finance team. They need an HR person. They need, proper management. So that's definitely a path to consider as well. But for me, I really wanted to be doing that work and be on the program side. So I think the key was really diversifying my undergraduate education. I didn't really recognize it at the time, but Bentley offers a liberal studies major, which I took full advantage of. I took as many classes as possible in global studies and Spanish language, and I thought it was more just for fun. I thought it was kind of my hobby and, traveling and not really a career path. But that actually served me so well because I could apply that into my graduate studies when I ultimately went back for my master's in global studies, actually at Northeastern's College of Professional Studies. So I use both degrees daily. I'm constantly analyzing, the logistics of each shipment. I'm using my intercultural communication skills to work with partners in Sudan and Syria and Honduras, all over the world. But really diversifying and not pigeonholing yourself too early, like I might have done. But it ended up being okay, finding out where it was going to lead.
Thanks, Laura. I'm very happy to hear about your career path, and can definitely resonate with both you and Alex on the choices and sort of like it's not a roundabout path, but every past step informs the next and has value. So, for example, I was looking to do a PhD before I started at Northeastern and figured out that, I like working with people, and a lot of research is more heads down work. And so that's how I landed in sustainability myself. Andrew, do you have anything to add to what Laura said, or just wanted to share about your career path?
I suppose similar to everybody else, I sort of wound up somewhere that I didn't realize existed when I started my path. I started college right out of high school and flopped out pretty fast and wound up being a carpenter. And that took me on a long winding road through the sort of various types of jobs one has as a person in the building trades. During that time, I did the Harvard Extension School, studied history, which is the thing that I'm sort of it's my hobbies. I just read big old books. But sort of after 15 or so years of that, I was working in high-end residential construction in the city. So I was in Beacon Hill, Back Bay, remodeling, $500,000 kitchens. And after a while, I sort of stopped being able to keep myself interested in it. There's a ton of stress in that work. For me, there was financial reward, but I wasn't super satisfied with any of the things I was accomplishing. You create a beautiful thing and then you leave and you never see it again. And, it's someone's fourth house and it's like it doesn't really close the loop of what I was looking for in work, which was something that was sort of more rewarding. And I sort of found Boston Building Resources a bit by accident. and was struck by the idea that I had been working, in the same zip code for over a decade. I had been throwing away, construction is a super sort of waste intensive process. You're constantly getting rid of stuff that you don't need to get rid of because you have nowhere to put it and nobody wants to take it. And here's this place that's been here for 30 years trying to solve this problem of making things available to people that need them. And I just like couldn't help myself. So I came here and took the first job they would give me. And that was almost 3 years ago. So it's a tremendously dynamic, exciting, often stressful, and always interesting place to work. I'm sure Laura, is particularly sort of keen on that. Like, it's a logistics challenge. Every day is like, oh, there's a pile of stuff over here. How does it get over here? How do we make it available to A, B, C, and D? How do we tell people that we have the stuff they need? And building materials are like a particularly complex, cumbersome, and specific thing sort of in a reuse economy, right? It's hard. We can have 300 windows in the building and it's hard to know which person needs which size of what make, of what material. The variables become endless. So it's really a lot of interesting problem solving. But every day, I can go outside and I can watch people in the parking lot they've had a home for 30 years. The property tax becomes unmanageable. They've put off repairs for a long time. They don't have the ability to go hire a contractor to fix all their problems for them. So they can come to Boston Building Resources and get materials for short money. We offer a whole range of educational workshops where they can learn how to do the things they need to do themselves. So framing a wall, tiling a bathroom, understanding how your heating system works, like pretty important stuff. And we do it all here on this cool campus at the foot of Mission Hill. So it's a trip, but every day is a new and exciting challenge. And that seems to be much more interesting to me than, expensive bathrooms. So here we are. And I suppose the educational piece, which is part of the question too, a lot of it is learning how to, for me anyway, it was like learning how to keep myself organized and how to figure out how to take on a big project and chip away at it in measurable chunks, or how to deal with people I don't know, or how to talk to strangers. My like the specific knowledge I have of the Federalist Papers doesn't really come into play at my job ever. But it, nonprofit work is often about like the community you're engaged in and understanding those kinds of dynamics and the people involved and systems in place around you and city governments and all that kind of stuff. So like a wide-ranging educational experience, I think, is broadly a helpful thing to have for anybody.
I'm sure it might help with some trivia too, Andrew, or in this day and age too, in thinking about what's going on in our country. But I won't make you recite the preamble of the Constitution or anything, just for fun. I'm tempted, but I won't. Yeah, I'm getting a theme from this, and I'd love everyone, just like rapid fire, our panelists, to answer the following question. Fact or fiction, do you need a background in environmental science or sustainability to work and do innovation in the field of sustainability? Maybe you guys can say it all together if you want. Go.
No.
Fiction.
We tried.
Something I'd like to mention from our previous conversation that a professor once told me, which I think is a really insightful just perspective on the sustainability, green, social impact space, is that sustainability at one point was thought to be a discipline, a specific focus, and then it was thought to be multidisciplinary and spanning a lot of different industries, a lot of different career pathways. And I had a professor who told me, but sustainability and taking care of the earth and each other is really adisciplinary, meaning that we should be thinking about sustainability in every type of career, at any type of job. We should be thinking about how are the decisions that we are making today impacting the future lives of people tomorrow. And I think there's two really interesting ways that you can look at it, because on the one hand, if you studied environmental science or you studied sustainability, you can use that knowledge of how to keep the earth clean in any specific field to help them be more sustainable and to help them have a better impact on the planet. But alternatively, if you studied anything else, business, economics, any of the STEM fields, art, there are ways to apply all of the skills and knowledge that you develop in those areas and apply them to the nonprofits and sustainability focused organizations that are creating a positive impact in the world. Because regardless, nonprofits need accountants too. They need people to do their marketing. They need people to help with their communications. They need people to help with anything that you can think of. There are nonprofits that require those skills in order to create the positive impact that they're creating. So whether you already have a sustainability focus and you're wondering, what are my career options? The answer is you can make a difference with that skill set in any industry. And on the alternative side, if you're studying business and you're wondering how you can apply that to help the sustainability field, then there are so many organizations that can use your specific skill set to help create the positive impact that they're already trying to create.
Yeah, I think there's kind of a misconception around sustainability as a field being, science driven, or that you have to understand the chemical, whatever you said, Alex, about photosynthesis. But for me, it comes down to more just like, as you're saying, Noah, almost like, well, this might be polarizing, but a bit common sense, because it's about being a humanitarian. It's about being selfless. It's about more than just yourself, and whether that's applied to how you run an organization or how you interact with children or how you walk in a public park. It all comes down to those, what we would call soft skills now. But sustainability as a field isn't necessarily a STEM field, even though we kind of put it in that bucket in terms of our traditional education system, which I think can be misleading. And it might be why I didn't start as a career in sustainability, because I thought I had to love science and I didn't. So opening your eyes to alternative paths, and perhaps the traditional system doesn't support the best route. Surprise.
Yeah, I feel sometimes in our field or in our particular corner, right, in material reuse, circular economy stuff, we sort of people that come to us from a pure sustainability angle that are like just interested in the sustainable impact we're making, they sort of lose the other really important side of this, which is like the social benefit of what we're doing and the way that you're able to do this like intuitively good thing, which is like, this is a perfectly good refrigerator that someone doesn't want. I should somehow be able to make this available to someone who needs a refrigerator, right? Like everyone understands that's a good idea, political affiliation aside. How do you sort of, when people come to us and they say, well, like how many tons of embodied carbon did you divert last year? You're like, well, so many, which is not an amazing impact. There's recyclers that do all sorts of incredible work, but recycling creates waste, and we are avoiding waste entirely, right? We are keeping things out of that stream and sort of keeping them in our local economy in a way that provides like an immediate benefit for folks. And so we often have to sort of, by focusing on the sustainable side of it, people can sometimes forget about the societal benefit. And then by focusing on the societal benefit, you can sometimes displace the sustainable side of it. And it's, for us, like, especially with like grants and everything that we're crazy about all the time, the special sauce is like, this came from this place, went to this place and helped this person. That is sustainable, that is socially advantageous, and you should pay us for it, right? Like it's, that's the beautiful part of it. If I had thought about this as a purely sustainability focused enterprise, I would have had a hard time. I wouldn't have found it the way I found it, right? I came to it because I was interested in the sort of social side.
Yeah, agreed. I think I feel that a lot in my work as well. We often get questions both in our staff and from other people. It's like, oh, we want to know how many tons of carbon like the trees in the park are sequestering, or we want to know how many tons of trash your volunteers are removing from the park, and et cetera, et cetera. And those numbers are important and we're very proud of them. But I think there's a lot that's lost in between those numbers. Cracks. So like there's the tons of carbon, but there's also the people that love the trees and think they're beautiful and have picnics under them. And there's, you know, the relationships I build with my volunteers and they build with each other when they come out to do those park cleanups. Yeah, and I really, yeah, I think that's so dearly treasured, and yeah, such a perk of doing this work.
Here at Partners for World Health, we have hundreds of volunteers per week. And I would say the majority of them come with no direct tie to the humanitarian work that we do or the sustainability work that we do. They're here to be involved in their own community, which is a really unique space that nonprofits provide for people of all interests, all backgrounds. They might become more interested in the humanitarian work that we're doing and the fact that, you know, all the supplies around them would have been incinerated or in a landfill. And we see that kind of excitement once they get here, but they don't come here because they, you know, that's not always the first reason people come here. So it really speaks to the power of nonprofits and the community work. And like you said, Alex, the numbers are one thing, but the amount of people that wouldn't have been involved otherwise is really important.
And I'd just like to add here that there's really a theme here that like doing the thing that's right for the planet and doing the thing that is right for our people, our communities, you know, the world around us, like often go hand in hand. And I think that's part of the reason why all of us find the work that we do in this nonprofit space so rewarding, because not only by educating our young children about nature, by taking them outdoors, not only is that make them more likely to care about conservation, sustainability, grow up pursuing careers in that space, grow up like voting for policies that support climate action, but also it turns out that children breathing fresh air, spending time outdoors, getting more sunlight is also good for their physical health. It turns out that spending time outdoors instead of on screens also is good for their socialization and development of interpersonal skills. And I think it's pretty amazing that, you know, all of the people on this panel have found ways to give back to the planet, but also, well, doing it in such an authentic and meaningful way that connects us to our communities and connects us with the real people who we are actually impacting on, you know, a day-to-day and week-by-week basis.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited by what you just brought up, the theme of it's not just sustainability, but it's also connection. And I think, Laura, you said it very well that these nonprofits are spaces for people to connect, not just to serve or to learn, to contribute, but they're part of something bigger. And at the same time, you're building community while you do it. So I agree, this is very critical. I know, like, as someone who's at the cusp of Gen Z, a lot of the people on this call are Gen Z. There is, like, you know, a big concern of like loneliness and how do people, you know, make connections. And so I feel like these spaces that are in the community through nonprofits, even if it's as a student right now, you can go and you can volunteer and you can make these connections and feel rooted where you live. And that is so, so critical for everyone, the sense of, hey, I belong in my community. So I think that's another so important aspect of nonprofit work that I'm very appreciative of all of you for bringing us here to that topic.
Yeah, we love volunteers. You know, we had like, and to your point, Karen, we had a student who came to us for court mandated community service, and he was lovely. And like a month later, 3 of his friends showed up and wanted to work with us. And now 6 months on from that, they've all got like unique skill sets. They've all found a little niche to work in the reuse center. I've got one of them working on like external events and graphic design. Like, you know, you sort of people, and we've got volunteers of all ages, all backgrounds, but you give people an opportunity to connect around something they think is interesting or fun. And the connections people make are like really wonderful. We have these like volunteer appreciation events where you just watch all these different people come together and you're like, man, it's like we're just selling old windows, right? And there's all these wonderful people that come down to support the work and help out our customers, and yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Looks like we have a question from the audience member. I think I don't know, Diane, if you're in the Boston area or another location, but the question is, how can teams get involved in community service projects close to campus? Yeah, Boston based, that target sustainability. So I would say, yeah, our Boston members, if you can speak to this question.
Yeah, I'm happy to hop in on this. We have our volunteer season is about to start up again for the year. We go dormant in the winter since there's not as much for folks to do outside at that time. But we'll be starting off the year strong in April. So on the second Saturday of every month, we have open to the public volunteer events. The location and the tasks that we work on rotate just to spread the love throughout the parks. But the first one of those of our second Saturdays will be on April 12th, I believe, is the second Saturday of April. And then we have our annual Earth Day Muddy River cleanup on April 26th, also a Saturday. I know there's usually a good number of students or alums that come to that. And that's a lot of fun because that happens in all our parks simultaneously. So it's really a citywide and honestly a watershed-wide effort because we work with a lot of the folks who work in other spots of the Charles River as well. We also, if you really want to plant something, we have some planting events coming up. We have our Arbor Day tree planting on April 25th. We have another tree planting that's going to be in Franklin Park on May 15th, and hopefully another one in the works. It's going to be a busy spring. And then if any of y'all are around during summer, we have a summer event called Tuesdays with Roses. And on every Tuesday evening, 5:30 to 7:30, we host a maintenance event, volunteer event in the Rose Garden in Back Bay, right by Northeastern. So that one's definitely a favorite of our volunteers. Yeah. So yeah, hope to see y'all at some of those. Oh, thank you, Kieran.
Yeah, I'll send the link for the Sustainability in Northeastern's newsletter. We're going to be featuring this for our Earth Month event calendar. So that's why I have this so handy.
Right. We also have an Earth Day event, so I don't want to compete with our friends doing the much needed cleanup. But if you want to go to a party afterwards, 100 Terrace Street, BBR, we do like an annual Earth Day event. So there's music and we grill a bunch of food and it's open to the public and there's art making and stuff for kids. And the normal, the store is open like it always is. Outside, it's a lot of fun. There's going to be a DJ this year with a dance floor. It's going to be a hoot. And we have different groups of volunteers. I mean, Laura, I would probably have some interesting takes on this, but volunteer groups can be tough for us to integrate because so much of what we do is like really specific. So we might need you to come like 2 or 3 times to learn how to do some inventory management system thing we do in order to be like super helpful to the program. So we encourage people to sign up for sort of continued volunteer engagement, coming back, once a month for 6 months or once every couple of weeks. But if you're interested in group projects, we certainly do our best to come up with some interesting stuff for people to do. So you can get in touch and you can work with our volunteer coordinator, see if we can put something together. But the sweet spot for us is really when people are able to spend enough continuous time in the organization to sort of learn the intricacies and oddities of what we do and be able to contribute in specific ways. That's the most valuable.
And I'll just chime in here as someone who recently graduated from college and was very involved in several initiatives on campus, like a Miyawaki forest planting. There was a club called Tugi, the urban gardening initiative that I was a part of, where we would go into local public schools in Boston and teach classes about gardening and the beauty of being able to support life from within a classroom. But I would say in general, and I don't know if it's exactly the same at Northeastern as it was at BU, but we have a directory of all the different clubs on campus that you can go online and look for. And I would recommend just try to find like the few different environmental clubs and student organizations on campus. And most of them probably have email newsletters where they send weekly or monthly updates about different events that are going on. And I was subscribed to probably 4 or 5 of these different newsletters as a BU student, and I would get opportunities in my inbox pretty regularly between these clubs partnering with places like the Charles River Conservancy to go do a river cleanup, or with Sugi forest making to go plant a Miyawaki forest in Brookline. So I feel like that as a student, that's a really good way to kind of stay in the know of like cool volunteering opportunities in the sustainability or nonprofit conservation space. And if you're specifically interested in volunteering with Boppin or Adori, Boppin, you can go on the website, and I think they have a volunteer button that you can click on. And I'll send at Adori, we also empower people by sending them free books and resources that they can take into local schools to teach kids about sustainability as well. So lots of opportunities as students to get involved for sure. And the more newsletters that you're subscribed to, the more information that you'll get on a regular basis about cool upcoming opportunities. So that was a really good place to start for me personally.
Even though we're not in Boston, we're pretty close. But Kieran, as you spoke about, you did a weekend here in Portland and did a couple of volunteering days. We have student groups here all the time. We have the opportunity to start chapter organizations on different campuses. So whether it be Northeastern or wherever, that you might get involved in fundraising or just advocacy. And we are always looking to expand our collections of discarded medical supplies. So maybe it's running we call it a DME drive, durable medical equipment. So you go out into your community and advertise to collect everyone's old crutches, canes, and walkers that they have from when they, broke their ankle in 2nd grade. Everyone has something laying around their house, or, some collection opportunities if you're working in healthcare and hospital spaces. Introducing the idea of working with Partners for World Health. We have a team that does the procurement side. So we're working with nurses on the floor, administration, supply chain managers at facilities to redirect. Instead of putting into the trash bin here, let's put it into the PWH bin here. So there's opportunities to get involved without physically being here in Portland, although we would love to have you. We regularly have Saturday volunteers in 3-hour shifts, and then we also do Monday through Friday if that works for everyone. But yeah, lots of opportunities for students, and we're always buzzing with, we had middle schoolers and high school buddies program here yesterday, and some freshmen in high school, and then we had college chapters. So there's always people of all ages running around.
And also, because I forgot to mention earlier, to say that we host a Northeastern co-op every semester at the Conservancy. So if you're looking for a place to co-op, find us.
Are you seeking co-ops or a co-op for the fall?
Yep.
2025?
Yep. Yeah, we've had a co-op every semester for as long as I've been working here. I'm not sure when we started, but yes, we love the program.
Excellent.
We have
Anyone
summer interns as well. Yes.
Okay.
I think we just closed on our maybe 2nd or 3rd summer intern for this year. But the application might be still open, and that's, you get an exposure to supply chain, logistics, sustainability. If you wanted to study, the type of items that are coming in and from where. Working with volunteer management, so all sorts of communication skills acquired, and our summer interns are always having a great time. You're literally here, 40 hours a week. It's a paid opportunity, so it's a really great exposure into working in a nonprofit environment and touching on all the different departments. And then throughout the school year, there are other opportunities for internships, but if you're in Boston, it might be difficult to get here a couple times a week.
Well, we do have the Portland campus, and this
Yeah.
has been this Zoom is available for anyone at any of our locations across
great.
the global network system. So knowing now that you have the internships too, Laura, I can definitely connect you with the Rue Institute, and we can get that information out at least for the fall or for next year as well.
Yes, definitely.
And Alex, Noah, Andrew, I can feature your information on the Sustainability Northeastern's newsletter for the Boston campus. So great, we're making some connections here as well. But to end us off, I do have one final question, but thinking about your role either in this organization or NOAA, like for Adori, thinking about what do you think really makes your organization a leader in your niche in sustainability? I know we have medical waste here, we have reuse, we have green space, urban green space management, education. So what makes you a leader? Your organization a leader?
Well, we are it. So there are Habitat for Humanity restores, which are like a function of the broader nonprofit. Those are largely focused, at least in this area, around household goods, right? Furniture and lighting and stuff. If you're looking for a place with secondhand windows, doors, toilets, sinks, lighting, it's a pretty endless amount of stuff, kitchen cabinets, we are it. There used to be one in Springfield, Mass. that closed late last year. It is an inherently complex and unprofitable business to be in. And there are scattered reuse centers that focus on building materials around the country. There's organizations where we all sort of talk to each other and learn from each other. Everybody winds up with the same fundamental problem, which is you can usually get about 60 to 70% of your budget by selling stuff, and the rest of it is fundraising. So whether you're reliant on volunteers or whether you've got 100,000 square feet, like one outside DC, or whether you got 9,000 like we do here in Boston, it's a tough thing to do. So we are really focused on trying to figure out, instead of being sort of infatuated with the goodness of the idea, like how much we think this ought to be able to work because it is such an excellent thing to do, we're really focused on figuring out how to make it work better. So we're working on like market development, inventory systems, a lot of trying to iron out a lot of the complexities inherent in a bunch of diffuse secondhand stuff going to people all over the place. It's not for the faint of heart, but it's really interesting and it really matters to people on a daily basis. So, we often find that people will come to us and think that they're going to solve all of our problems by giving us like a whole bunch of great stuff. We just got a 53-foot trailer sent to us free of charge from the island of Nantucket. It's like a $19 million spec house that got demolished. And the new owner wanted a tax write-off for the stuff that they didn't wind up using in the house. So they loaded up a trailer and shipped it to us. We had to gather like 16 volunteers. We had to unload the whole thing by hand. We crammed it into our warehouse. We're tripping over it every day. We have no paperwork about how it's organized. The stuff that we get is generous and it's exciting and it gives us opportunities to try all sorts of new interesting things. But it also just increases the complexity of what we do and increases the burden on our small workforce and the volunteers and everything. So it's trying to figure out how to develop the systems to be creative and efficient and also responsive and generous and sort of all the other things you need to be. So I don't know if we're a leader, but we're just about it. So we're leading by default.
You've been around for 40 years, I think, right, Andrew?
Yeah, the reuse center's been here for 30 years. So that in itself is a pretty remarkable achievement. Yeah, it's and there's a lot of great success stories with architectural salvage, which is really cool stuff. Like I'm a history nut. I would love to have an antique store. The problem is none of our customers want antiques. They want things that are as close to new as they can get for as cheap as they can get them. So it's tough, but it's cool and fun, and it's certainly different every day.
Andrew, we are very similar in our work days and our work environments.
Oh, I bet.
I understand every single thing that you're saying. And yeah, we are also it in New England, at least, and the broader greater New England area. There are plenty of others larger than us doing, really impactful work. I think what makes us niche is that we're still small enough so we can meet those individuals who want to donate a pair of crutches. We're still small enough that we can pick up all of the donations that we want from our facility. So we don't charge our partners to drop off to us, and we don't rely on them to fund the drop-offs, which is huge because most hospitals in Boston, for example, we're going to their loading docks and picking up from them. So that's something we've just kind of become used to, and our partners have become used to. So that's going to be built into our business plan, I'm sure, going forward. Otherwise, the relationships are all in question. So being that small and being the only one in the area has allowed us to meet more people at the smaller scale than would be collected from these larger organizations who are working with manufacturers and big distributors. And maybe those items weren't actually destined for the landfill at all. Maybe they were just produced for the donation, kind of like the Nantucket House to get the tax write-off, which happens a lot. So we are not in that space yet, which has its pros and cons. It'd be awesome to be part of that manufacturing circle, but in the meantime, we're collecting from individual nurses who hate throwing things in the trash, right? They literally hate putting a syringe in a new packet or, unopened syringe straight into the trash just because it was in the same room as a patient. So that human connection puts us in a different space than the others who are just at the top of the chain. And yeah, the ironies of people donating wonderful things that we are so grateful for, but have absolutely no use for or absolutely no room for. And the floor space, always stepping over things. I mean, the ironies are so great, but that's why we're here, I guess.
I'll chime in here. I think that both Boston Outdoor, well, I'll go with Boston Outdoor Preschool Network first, but I think that the way that they're the leader in the space, aside from being the first nature-based preschool network to open in the greater Boston area, is also the fact that they're really focused on equity, and like around 40% of their students are on scholarship to make the kind of education that they offer more accessible to those who otherwise wouldn't be able to afford private education. And they opened the first universal pre-K as an outdoor classroom in Boston at the Franklin Park Zoo. So that's a 100% free program for 20 students to get high quality nature-based education. And I think what Adori and Boppin both share as being a leader in the space in general is this idea that sustainability and environmental education, there's so many different aspects that are important for people to help out with, but what we've chosen to really narrow down on is the environmental empathy and how important it is that we shift the paradigm away from like recycling is what everyone needs to do because it's the right thing to do, and really helping people understand, like, why are we recycling? Like, why does this really matter? And how do we help people develop the intrinsic motivations and values of understanding why the earth, aside from trees offering us the oxygen that we need to breathe and the earth offering every other resource that humans need to survive, which you would want to be enough, people understanding like why nature is something that's so important and so valuable and interconnected to everything that exists on our planet and something that we need to take care of. So by taking kids outside, we're helping them develop that sense of empathy. And whether they grow up and become a business person or an activist or an educator, if they have those intrinsic values and that intrinsic motivation, then they're going to end up creating a positive impact in the world. And that's where I think both Adori and Boppin are leaders in the space, is we really focus on helping people develop that sense of empathy and that emotional connection with nature so that all the things to follow can, like more people, like the amazing people in this room, I think will enter our workforce later on if they're taught at a young age of how important this field of work really is.
Yeah, I'll close this out really quickly. I know we're at time. So the Conservancy was founded to advocate for the Emerald Necklace Parks as a unified whole. And we were really the first, at least with regards to the necklace, to do that. And the necklace itself is 7 different parks split between 3 different landowners, the city of Boston, the town of Brookline, and the state. And so prior to the Conservancy's founding, the parks were, you know, advocated for and maintained in a really piecemeal fashion. And that meant that as a system, as a work of green infrastructure overall, they were not in very good condition. They were not doing the stormwater management they were supposed to do, not providing all the ecosystem services they could. So we, the Conservancy, exist to provide, you know, a unified advocacy, a unified vision, and more uniform and higher quality, hopefully, maintenance for the parks.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Let's give a virtual round of applause for our panelists. If you guys want to go off or on camera and clap, you can, or do the react button. But thank you all for thanks, Megan. Thank you all for your time. I'm sure that the students and staff, faculty, community members who have been listening and have learned a lot about the organizations, about your career paths and what they can learn and apply in their own lives. So thank you so much. I'm gonna be sending out an email probably in the next few days with all the links that we shared in the chat, so people have access to all the wonderful resources. So don't worry about that. And yeah, thank you again, Laura, Andrew, Alex, Noah, for your time. It's been really fun doing this with you, and I've learned a lot myself, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kieran. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.